Our last lecture was the 12th session of the Compassion series, which has a connection with what will be covered today. Let me just recap what we talked about in the previous lecture. It was taught in the last lecture that if we use the speed of sound to recite the Buddha's holy name without involving any visualization, that is, the speed of mind, if you do not use the speed of mind to make contact with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come to help you, your failure rate will be very high. The reason is that the physical distance between Buddhas and the human realm is too big. Where are the Buddhas? They are at the highest level of the heavens of the form realm. So, it is a great distance away from the human realm. The second is the distance in terms of time, the speed of sound being too slow. The third is the distance in terms of structure. It is even harder for the speed of sound to pass through the highest level of the heavens of the form realm, the Akanistha end of form heaven, the material structure of which is extremely sparse. Next is the distance in terms of ability. If you wish to go to the heavens of the form realm, you must have a certain degree of meditational power before you can reach there. If it is just to make contact and deliver a message for help, you still need a certain degree of meditational power for the message to reach its destination. Therefore, the requirement for the meditational power is that one must be able to maintain it, without any disturbance of thoughts and inversion of the mind for 1 to 7 days. The other one is the distance in terms of the degree of operation. Even if Buddhas and Bodhisattvas receive the message and come to help, it will still take time to reduce their energy. At the same time, they need to pull together the material substances of the same level as the deceased to be able to assist them. In addition, many mistakes could have been made, because it was ages ago, and the fact that people only relied on memory initially. Hence, there are many Buddhist sutras that have been tampered with. Over the past 2,000 years, many Buddhist sutras have been altered. So, we must analyze these sutras with meticulous and precise observations before we can believe and apply them. Otherwise, our relatives and we will be misled and cannot be saved. Are there other more serious consequences, except for not being saved? Yes, there are. These will be covered today. The past lectures of the Compassion and Bodhicitta series are available on the YouTube TV channel of Dudjom Buddhist Association International for you to re-watch. The first lecture of the visualization practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series provides the correct explanation of the Bodhicitta of emptiness, oral pith instructions on the Great Perfection, and the fallacies of the crazy wisdom. The second lecture teaches the visualization practice of initiating the programming and entering into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood, while the third lecture provides the oral pith instructions in attaining the Dharmakaya Buddha of the teachings on the key of life and death. The fourth lecture is about the teachings on the key of life and death too, the oral pith instructions in attaining the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and the oral pith instructions and detailed explanation of the visualization practice on Heart Sutra. The fifth lecture is about the teachings on the key of life and death 3, the oral pith instructions in attaining the Nirmanakaya Buddha, as well as a comparison on the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices between the Great Perfection and the Heart Sutra. The sixth lecture is about the comparisons among the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices in the daily life by the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection. The seventh lecture explains the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice on the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness in the Heart Sutra. The eighth lecture teaches the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice for the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness of the Great Perfection in the daily life. The ninth lecture explains how to use emptiness to visualize compassion in order to detach from emotional sufferings. The 10th lecture's title is What is the difference between the Dharma practice of abiding in notions and that of non-abiding in notions in the Diamond Sutra. The 11th lecture has 2 videos with different titles but the same content. One of the videos is entitled Why Does One Thought of Pure Belief in the Diamond Sutra Bring Immeasurable Virtuous Merits? Another video is entitled The Method of Accumulating Immeasurable Virtuous Merits is in the Diamond Sutra. The 12th lecture is entitled Buddhas are omnipresent, but why do they still need us to recite their holy names before coming to our rescue? It is about the conditions required for different Dharma practice methods and their respective results. Today is the 13th lecture. What is the method with a high success rate to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land? Let us review what has been taught so far. If you have no compassion, it is very difficult to be reborn in the Buddha's pure lands. We cultivate compassion in 2 stages. If we have no bodhicitta, we cannot attain Buddhahood. Bodhicitta is divided into 2 levels. One is relative bodhicitta, and the other is absolute bodhicitta. They are cultivated separately. If you want to cultivate intrinsic awareness, that is, bodhicitta, and hope to restore it to perfect enlightenment in order to attain Buddhahood, you must observe the Bodhisattva precepts. You may watch our lecture video on YouTube to know what Bodhisattva precepts are. Suppose we only practice everything from step 1 to step 4, but not the absolute bodhicitta of step 5, that is, to incorporate precepts, meditational power, and wisdom in our Dharma practice to master emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Suppose you do not practice this, but only mercy, pity, and some relative bodhicitta, by making certain wishes, observing some precepts, and helping others. If you accumulate virtuous merits this way in the hope of restoring your intrinsic awareness, it will be extremely slow and require 2 to 3 great asamkhya kalpa, that is, an incalculably long period. You never know how many hundreds of millions of reincarnations and rebirths you have to go through before you can make it. It is an incredibly long time. We have also talked about the bardo, also called the intermediate stage, which is a transitional period. In fact, there are 6 transitional periods in the whole process of our reincarnation. We have explained the bardo of dying, bardo of dharmata, and bardo of becoming before. These are all the changes occurring during the transitional periods after death, which are very important. We have given detailed explanations about them in the first 5 lectures of our Compassion series. They can help us deal with death and assist in our Dharma practice, just like prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. There will be many key opportunities appearing, which are very important to prescribe the right medicine for the right disease. But what should we practice when we are still alive? And how do we go about it? This is called the bardo of this life. What do we do in our Dharma practice when we are alive? This is what we are going to teach now. We must practice the holy Dharma from step 1 to step 5, not only step 1 to step 4. How do we practice the whole set of step 1 to step 5 all at once in our daily life? This is how we divide. We divide the 24 hours of a day into 3 periods to practice the holy Dharma. When you wake up from sleep, emerge from a meditative state, or during a session of meditative concentration, in fact, you might enter the Dharma realm at any time. So, we must initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm in advance and prepare ourselves. This has been covered in the first 5 lectures. Starting from the 6th lecture, we have been teaching how we should undergo the relevant training in the 3 realms in advance, so we can easily restore our bodhicitta. This is what we are going to talk about right now. Why should we restore our intrinsic nature, also called Buddha nature, or Dharma nature? Because it is necessary to restore our intrinsic awareness of perfect enlightenment, which is called bodhicitta. Once restored, even not to a very high level, it can at least help us be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. And you can even attain Buddhahood once it is restored to its 100%. If it is in terms of waking up from sleep, emerging from a meditative state, or during a session of meditative concentration, it is best to use the Heart Sutra to explain. If it is about how we should train our intrinsic awareness in our daily life, it is best to use the Diamond Sutra to explain. We have been explaining the Diamond Sutra in the previous 12 lectures. We will continue to talk about it in today's 13th lecture. Let us first talk about where this sutra came from. The origin of this sutra is because of an elder named Subhuti, who asked Lord Buddha Shakyamuni a question: if a sentient being, whether a man or a woman, note that he did not state here that only men, but not women are allowed, be it male or female, if he or she resolves to attain Anatarasamayakasambodhi, that is, the intrinsic awareness of perfect enlightenment. Where should his or her mind abide in? That is, what should he or she have to bear in mind? At the same time, how should he or she subdue deluded thoughts? How should our thoughts be subdued? How should one subdue one's deluded thoughts? Another name for the unsurpassed, well-balanced and equally abiding, complete and perfect enlightenment is absolute bodhicitta. Absolute means the ultimate or highest. What is bodhicitta? It is perfect enlightenment, that is, attaining Buddhahood. This question is the same as asking how we should train our minds in daily life to accomplish the bodhicitta to attain Buddhahood. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni provided 2 oral pith instructions back then: should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. That is, we must realize that all deluded thoughts are actually temporary displays of the Dharma nature, and they themselves have no eternal forms and appearances. These are oral pith instructions that help us grasp the state of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. In fact, we have been explaining these 2 oral pith instructions all this while. Where did we leave off in the previous lecture? We were at this paragraph. So long as you give rise to a very pure thought of belief towards any sentence stated in the Diamond Sutra, believing it can help you, you can enter into a state of heightened awareness. Then, you will be like merging with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and everyone will seem to be interconnected. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will immediately know your existence and assist you, thus bringing immeasurable virtuous merits to you. You can watch the 11th and the 12th lecture videos for details. Why do we need these virtuous merits? If you read any Buddhist sutra, you will realize that no matter if you want to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land, or you hope not to fall into the 3 lower realms, or you wish to be rescued out of the 3 lower realms in case you fall into one of them, or you are seeking higher-level goals, to be liberated from samsara, or to attain Buddhahood, you must have a lot of virtuous merits to pull it off. It turns out that there are many different degrees of virtuous merits, and you cannot have any less virtuous merits, for you cannot be saved even if you just lack a little bit of them. So, how can we plant immeasurable virtuous merits through certain Dharma practice methods in our daily lives? Is it sufficient if I do a lot of good deeds? According to the Diamond Sutra, there is a big difference. It will take a long time, as long as 3 great Asamkhya Kalpa, if you want to accumulate enough of this kind of virtuous merits through good deeds. But suppose you read the Diamond Sutra, and have faith in one sentence of it, and this pure thought can enter directly into the emptiness, the intrinsic awareness of perfect enlightenment. With just one thought of pure belief, you can already be interconnected with the omnipresent Dharma nature of Buddhas. Once you are interconnected with them, you will be able to plant immeasurable virtuous merits. With this kind of virtuous merits, we will not easily fall into lower rebirths in the 3 lower realms, that is, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. The reasons behind it need to be explained in great detail. If not, people will be misguided, wondering why they would still be fine by reading a sentence or 2 from the Diamond Sutra, even if they were guilty of murder and arson. You will misunderstand it then. The fact is that it will not be against the law of causes and effects. It is justified and conditional. It will not work by merely reading a sentence or 2. These are covered in the 11th and the 12th lectures of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. You can re-watch them. We have explained the different kinds of distance in the previous session. There are distances in terms of levels, azimuth, and intrinsic awareness. On top of this, if we have incorrect knowledge and view about the Buddhist holy Dharma, we will not succeed in our Dharma practice. We also need to consider our Dharma practice methods and the level of our Dharma practice to determine the success rate. Furthermore, you also have to take your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio into account. What is your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio like? Is it possible that during your Dharma practice, the karmic forces from your karmic creditors are so strong that they can interrupt or weaken your Dharma practice to make you fail. The success rate has to take our virtuous and evil karmic portfolio into account. So, why do we have to read the Diamond Sutra? Because while reading the Diamond Sutra, if you suddenly comprehend and realize it, the merits and virtues that you can accumulate will enable you to rearrange your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. The virtuous karma can be increased many times more, and the evil karma will be reduced comparatively. It is the principle of trade-off. If you also know to observe the precepts and repent to clear the evil karma, your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, needless to say, will have the largest proportion being virtuous karma, and very little evil karma. If you also act in concert with the appropriate Dharma practice methods, it will be very easy for you to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land. It will be a breeze if you wish to go to the Western land of extreme bliss. If you say that you do not only aim for going to the Western land of extreme bliss, but the 5 heavens of non-returning instead, hoping to be liberated from samsara, or even attain Buddhahood, that is not a problem at all. This is because you have laid a sound foundation. So, it turns out that it is imperative to rearrange one's virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. It turns out that apart from reciting Namo Buddha Amitabha, you also need to complement it with reading the Diamond Sutra to assist you. In fact, our Dharma practice cannot solely rely on only one method. We have to complement it with many other aspects. For example, you must observe the precepts and pay attention to the law of causes and effects. You must know that the 3 realms operate the law of causes and effects. How do we avoid violating something terrible? You can only do so by understanding how it works, and believing deeply in the principle of cause and effect. Besides, we have also mentioned that the success rate of your Dharma practice methods is determined by 3 key elements: precepts, meditational power, and wisdom. So, we have discussed if we are to recite the Buddha's holy names, how high is the success rate to go to the Western land of extreme bliss if we recite Namo Buddha Amitabha. This has been explained in the previous lecture. So, some questions have been raised. A disciple of mine many years ago wanted very strongly to ask me this question. I did not answer him at that time. If I were to answer him, it would take many sessions and a lot of analyses to do so. I did not want to give him a vague answer hastily. He asked me this way: what if I recited Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya? Let us take a look. I have already explained this diagram that shows the distribution of the entire 3 realms in the previous session. Where are the Buddhas? They are at the highest level of the heavens of the form realm called Akanistha. Most Buddhas and Bodhisattvas reside here. The highest 5 levels are called the 5 heavens of non-returning, into which one has to enter in order to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Let us have a look. Where are humans? Human beings are at a very low level in the realm of desire. So, the distance is huge. The Akanistha is very far away from the human realm. You ask me to have a very high level of meditational power and observe the precepts. If I have no wisdom, I will be required to observe some precepts. I cannot but observe them. What if I try Bodhisattva Maitreya? It turns out that he is actually at the Tusita within the heavens of the desire realm, that is, in the Tusita heaven. There are 2 courtyards, the outer court and the inner court. He has been propagating the holy Dharma in the inner court. If I recite Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya, it will be much closer. Logically speaking, it does not require a very high level of meditational power. Do I need to observe the precepts? Since it is so close, would it be much easier for me? Would my success rate be much higher then? We will explain this today. There are a few things we need to pay attention to. First and foremost, Bodhisattvas are different from Buddhas. The name is called Bodhisattva Maitreya, not Buddha Maitreya. So there is a distance in terms of ability. We also have to look at their vows. Have they made a vow to come to save you if you call their names? Buddha Amitabha has. He has made it clear that if you call his holy name, and when he receives the message, he will find a way to save you. But has Bodhisattva Maitreya made the same vow? Not only has he far less of the ability, but he also has not made a vow to come to your rescue upon receiving the message. Of course, will he find a way to do so? I believe that he will, given his compassion as a bodhisattva. But after all, there is a huge difference, for he has not attained Buddhahood. He is yet a Ekajata Pratibhada bodhisattva. What does it mean by Ekajata Pratibhada? He still needs to wait in the heavenly realm for his life to end. Then he must die once again, and take rebirth in the human realm, to clean up all his memories, and start all over again to practice the holy Dharma. It will be like Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, who sat under the Bodhi tree, and made up for some deficiencies, with a lifetime of Dharma practice before attaining Buddhahood. That is why he has a name called Ekajata Pratibhada, which means taking up a Buddha's place in his next life. Why does he lack a few things? What is he missing? I will explain a little of this shortly. But first, let us look at the deviations in time. When exactly will Bodhisattva Maitreya be reborn in the human realm, and then attain Buddhahood and teach us sentient beings? We have to wait. When was Lord Buddha Shakyamuni born? He was born in ancient India over 2,500 years BCE, and entered into Mahaparinirvana at the age of 80. Therefore, it will take another 5.67 billion years after the Mahaparinirvana of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, before Bodhisattva Maitreya will be born in our world and attain Buddhahood to teach us. It means that we have to wait for a very long time. During these 5.67 billion years, you are bound to violate precepts, and have times when your evil karma is heavy. You will definitely have the chance to be found by your karmic creditors, who cause you to fall into the 3 lower realms of hells, hungry ghosts and animals. It will be even worse if you fall into hell, as it is harder to get out. That is, you will not be able to get out in a long time. How could you see Bodhisattva Maitreya then? You may have to wait for many billions of years before you can see him. The teachings about Bodhisattva Maitreya are based on the 3 sutras of Maitreya. These refer to the 3 sutras about Bodhisattva Maitreya: Kwanmirukposal Sangsoengto Solch Onkyong Sutra, Mirukasenkyong Sutra, and the Sutra on the Maitreya's Great Attainment of Buddhahood. The sutras describe Bodhisattva Maitreya as a monk who has not eradicated his afflictions and does not practice meditation. Why did he not do any of these? Why was he like this? It is because he believed that those who practice the Bodhisattva deeds should focus on the almsgiving, observance of precepts, forbearance, diligence, compassion, and wisdom in the real world. If you only care about meditating in the remote mountains by yourself, then you are ignoring the sentient beings. If you only care about eradicating your own afflictions, without enlightening and saving the sentient beings widely, you are just like those who practice Hinayana. They also only care about themselves and do not save others. You will be short of compassion, and so how could your virtuous merits be complete and perfect then? Because of this, it is stated in the sutras that he does not work very hard and seldom practices the holy Dharma. But in fact, it is in the spirit of a Mahayana Bodhisattva that Maitreya has been very active in the world's salvation. But because of this, he also has a kind of illusory defilements and ignorance since time immemorial. Ignorance means stupidity, not being able to understand some truths. That is, the truth that he knows is not thorough enough. But in fact, Bodhisattva Maitreya is very capable. His Buddhist teachings and his analytical ability are excellent. The structure of his analysis is very subtle and detailed, which you may find it difficult to understand if you are not up to the standard yet. It is very profound. So, is his Buddhist doctrine not thorough? In fact, his analytical ability is very good and very detailed. You can hardly learn this. But then why does he still have the illusory defilements and ignorance since time immemorial? It is because something is missing there. What is it? If you attempt to enlighten and save the sentient beings with the ability of a bodhisattva, you must face the reality that you are not powerful enough and do not have the enough strength. You must attain Buddhahood in order to restore your perfect enlightenment, so you will never deviate. Also, you will get to understand all the mysteries of the entire universe, and you will acquire great power. You can either reduce or increase your energy level to go to any realm to save sentient beings. In fact, it is way more complete and perfect for saving sentient beings this way. If you insist on being a bodhisattva and saving sentient beings at this stage, without waiting until the attainment of Buddhahood, you will never attain Buddhahood. Is it not easy for you to deviate if you use such a limited ability to save sentient beings? Not only do you have deviations yourself, but you will also prone to having deviations in the process of saving people. That is why such a kind of illusory ignorance has been plaguing Bodhisattva Maitreya since time immemorial. He must wait until he completes his life at the inner court of Tusita within the heavenly realm. How long is that? His life will end in 5.67 billion years. And then he will die. Think about this. It turns out that anyone who has gone to the heavenly realm will eventually die. Bodhisattva Maitreya will die too. Of course. This is called impermanence. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni has already said that the three realms are impermanent. There is no such thing as eternal and never changing. You will always die no matter which Buddha's pure land you are reborn in. When any pure land perishes, every Buddha will either move to another pure land or create another pure land. If you are still a bodhisattva and have not yet attained Buddhahood, and the pure land is not created by you, your life will end one day. You must face it. Do not think that if you practice the holy Dharma well and are reborn in a Buddha's pure land, you have solved everything and have nothing to worry anymore. No, that is incorrect. You may not have to worry for a certain period, but this is not forever. Only if you are reborn in the 5 heavens of non-returning, the highest 5 levels of the heavens of the form realm, can you be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. You do not have to worry anymore then. But of course, what is the best? It is best to attain Buddhahood. This is because it is only a personal matter if you are liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Once you have left the 5 heavens of non-returning to save sentient beings, you may not be able to go back once you have come out. You may need a lot of opportunities and conditions to return to the 5 heavens of non-returning after you leave. This is because once you have entered into the 3 realms and started to pull together any material substance, you will be immediately tracked by your karmic creditors. Only if you do not pull any material substances will you not be found. But once you have come out of the 5 heavens of non-returning, you will start the pulling process and be tracked by karmic creditors. When that happens, you have to pay back the debts you owe. What will happen in the process of paying debts? You will be harassed badly and have to practice the holy Dharma for a long time before having the opportunity to return to the 5 heavens of non-returning. That is why Hinayana practitioners will only care for themselves. Once entering into the 5 heavens of non-returning, they will never come out again. They will not care if you are in trouble, because what matters most for them is that they themselves are not in trouble. That is why Hinayana practitioners are criticized for seeing someone in mortal danger without lifting a finger to save them. A Hinayana practitioner would say, "I can save you." How am I supposed to save you? I can leave the 5 heavens of non-returning. Once out, I may not be able to go back. I may be burned to death in the sea of flames and can get out. So, I definitely want come out to save you. Therefore, Hinayana practitioners will never come out to save you. What about bodhisattvas? If a bodhisattva has reached the level in their Dharma practice to enter into the 5 heavens of non-returning, they will still face the same problem when they come out. So, what should we do then? The only way is to enter into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood. You will then not be burned to death by the flames of the 3 realms at any time. This will not happen. You will not get yourself into trouble while saving others. You may fail to save them at most due to the incongruence of causes and conditions. But you will not get yourself into a situation where you cannot be saved. So, this is not going to happen. This is the reason why we must attain Buddhahood. So, suppose you often hold a thought, I must only attain Buddhahood after saving all the sentient beings. In short, as long as the hells are not empty, I will not attain Buddhahood. In that case, your ability will be limited. In the meantime, you will not be thorough in saving people and will deviate easily. As such, you will be troubled by illusory defilements and ignorance since time immemorial. So long as you have not attained Buddhahood one day, how are you going to save all sentient beings thoroughly? This is a barrier and limitation that we must break through in our thoughts. You all must understand. According to Kwanmaruk Posal Sangsangto Solch Onkyong Sutra, if you are reborn in the Tusita Pure Land after death, you can hear Bodhisattva Maitreya preaching the holy Dharma with your own ears. One paragraph states, the Buddha told Upli. The Lord Buddha said to his disciple Upli, if there are bhikshus and the general populace, if there are some monks and ordinary people, those never tired of life and death, but are fond of rebirths in heavens, unaware of the misery of life and death, you insist on being reborn in heavens, not tired of coming down to take rebirths again in the future. You are so fond of lives and deaths. If this is the case, I should also teach you at your request. If someone is able to do this, those who admire and revere the Supreme Bodhisattva, they love and respect very much this Supreme Bodhisattva, namely the perfect enlightenment. They really respect those Buddhas. Those who want to be a disciple of Maitreya, they also want to be a disciple of Bodhisattva Maitreya, should visualize in this way. They must carry out such visualization. Those who visualize this way, those who carry out the visualization practice, note that it is stated to visualize here. Remember, it is to visualize, not to recite Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya. Some people are trying to confuse you, making you believe that as long as we recite Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya, we can get to the inner court of Tusita to see Bodhisattva Maitreya and be taught by him. This is incorrect. It is stated clearly in this Buddhist sutra, it is to visualize, not to recite. There are other conditions as well. One must observe the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts Sktala, and the complete commandments, namely the precepts observed by monks and nuns. It is not written clearly enough here whether one has to observe all of the precepts, or just one of them. This is not stated clearly. Be diligent in both body and mind. They must practice the holy Dharma diligently, not seeking to cut off. They do not seek to cut off all afflictions to attain Buddhahood. They never think of entering into the Dharma realm, nor do they wish to get rid of all defilements. Just like Bodhisattva Maitreya, who does not practice meditation or many other Dharma methods. He only has an excellent analytical ability and keep on preaching the holy Dharma. Practice the 10 virtuous acts. They do practice the 10 virtuous acts, or 10 wholesome deeds. Thinking of the Tusita heaven all the time. I feel that these are better and more precise translations. If translated as reciting instead, it would give people the opportunity to mislead sentient beings. If you state it clearly like this, they will not be able to tamper with your Buddhist teachings, for they will not change thinking to reciting when explaining. To think is to think. These are accurate translations. You have to visualize how wonderful and joyous it is, like in the inner court of Tusita one by one. You are correct only if you visualize this way. For such visualization, if you can visualize it like this, it is called the right visualization. Right visualization means visualization without any deviations. For visualization on various aspects at the same time, if you add other visualizations to it, such as visualizing the pure land of Buddha Amitabha, or the Akanistha, these are called visualizations on various aspects at the same time. What does this sutra ask you to visualize now? You are thinking about going to see Bodhisattva Maitreya, who is in Tusita. Then you can only visualize the Tusita heaven. If you think this is good and that is good, and you visualize a few more things, this is called visualizations on various aspects at the same time. That is, you are adding interfering elements to it. You might question, how come this is called evil visualization? Evil here means deviation. Why call it deviation? Can I visualize both pure lands together? Without any disturbance of thoughts, and without inversion of the mind means that you are very focused on something. If you visualize a few more other things, you will be confused and deviated. Also, as you know, there is a distance between the Tusita heaven and the western land of extreme bliss, the pure land of Buddha Amitabha. How can you possibly have such an ability to visualize so many things from a different distance at the same time? It will only make your visualization deviated and unclear. As a result, you will fail in establishing the connection. That is, you will fail in connecting with the magnetic field of the Tusita heaven. If you fail to connect, you cannot get there. Then, all your efforts will be in vain. Therefore, it is described clearly here. When you visualize one thing, please focus on visualizing only that thing and not more than that. Otherwise, it is called evil visualization. Evil visualization does not imply one is visualizing something unclean. It is not interpreted this way. It simply means deviation. Consider this, what does thinking mean? It means visualization. Well, another paragraph states, the Buddha told Upali. The Buddha said to Upali. After the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha. When the Buddha entered into the Mahaparinirvana, the four groups of disciples, heavenly beings, Nagas, ghosts, and gods. All these disciples. If anyone wishes to be reborn in the Tusita heaven, if you wish to go to the Tusita heaven, should visualize in this way. You must visualize like this. Tied to the thought. This sentence is well said and well translated. Tied to means keep focusing on this visualization, without any disturbance of thoughts. Thinking of what? Thinking of the Tusita heaven. This thinking is visualizing. It means visualization. There is an extra sentence in front of it to make it clearer, so that it will not be tampered with by future generations. But unfortunately, it will still be tampered with later on. I had a disciple a long time ago, it has been 10 years. He insisted on reciting Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya. Some say that it guarantees success by reciting Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya only 3 times. But coming here, I have to learn visualization and learn this and that. I am also asked to observe the precepts. I am scared of these. I am afraid that I can't meet your requirements. After much consideration, I have decided to withdraw from the association. I had rather stick to reciting Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya 3 times or more. Then, I will definitely be able to get to Tusita heaven. If I can succeed by reciting just 3 times, I will be even more likely to succeed if I recite more than 3 times. I had rather stick to reciting Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya. Here says how should one go about it if one wishes to go to the Tusita heaven. Observe the precepts set by the Buddha. You must observe the precepts. This is a well-written statement. 1 to 7 days. You are required to have meditational power that can last for 1 to 7 days. Think of the 10 virtues. Think of the 10 wholesome deeds. Follow the 10 virtuous paths, do the 10 wholesome bodhisattvas' deeds. Dedicate the merits to being reborn before Maitreya. You then dedicate such merits to a willingness to be reborn at Bodhisattva Maitreya's. Should visualize in this way. You must visualize like this to be successful. You say, no. I will succeed by only reciting the Buddha's holy names. That means you are modifying other people's stuff. The Dharma propagators nowadays will just talk nonsense when explaining the Buddhist holy Dharma in order to strengthen their own sects. Is there any sutra stating that it is okay to only recite Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya? There is. I will talk about it later. Tied to the thought means one has to carry out visualization. Another sutra is the Mirukasenkyong Sutra, which states that you need to be committed to accumulating good roots. Do not omit this statement. Apart from reciting Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya, you must accumulate a lot of good roots. That is, one cannot be short of good roots. In order to wait for the birth of Bodhisattva Maitreya. How long is the wait? 5.67 billion years. Waiting for him to come down is not enough. You have to wait until he successfully eradicates the illusory defilements and ignorance since time immemorial to accomplish perfect enlightenment, that is, to attain Buddhahood. When the 3 great assemblies under the Nagapuspa tree takes place, you may then benefit from his holy Dharma teachings. Think about it. Although you do recite the holy name of Bodhisattva Maitreya, you have to wait for a very long time, during which you will definitely have an opportunity to fall into the 3 lower realms. The chances are very big. As Lord Buddha Shakyamuni says, it is very easy to fall into the 3 lower realms. It is far too easy due to their strong magnetic fields, and you are not strong enough to pull against them. Once you have fallen into these realms, do you think it will be okay to only recite the Bodhisattva's holy name a few times? Do you think that the Mirukasenkyong Sutra will go against the law of causes and effects? Of course not. But those who explain the sutra will. This is because their Dharma practices are not yet up to the standard. They do not believe deeply in the principle of cause and effect. So, they teach you this way in order to strengthen their own sects. You will then be misled, and there will be serious consequences. So, you must remember the conditions I mentioned in the previous session. How many of them have you met? You must figure that out carefully. Do not rely on their explanations, thinking that since reciting the Bodhisattva's holy name 3 times will do, success is guaranteed if you recite more than 3 times. It is not like that. You cannot go against the law of causes and effects. Your karmic creditors will not let you go easily just by hearing you reciting this Bodhisattva's holy name. No, they will not. You must find a way to practice the holy Dharma until you can rearrange your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. You must repent before you can make that happen. Now let us do some more analysis. It turns out that the virtuous and evil karmic portfolio is so important. If one is unable to readjust it, it will be useless to recite any holy name. Yes, the karmic creditors will not let you go. Even if a Buddha comes to pick you up, they will argue with the Buddha. Even if Bodhisattva Maitreya comes to pick you up, they will argue with Bodhisattva Maitreya as to why you should be saved despite that you have not repaid your debts. Therefore, it will only work if there is sufficient strength in your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. If we recite Namo Bodhisattva Maitreya, suppose your goal is set within the 3 realms, and the distance is huge. You may say, it is already very close. He is in the Tusita heaven, which is already much closer to me. Fine, it is much closer to you. Then it will depend on your own Dharma practice methods to determine the level of meditational power you require. If you only recite holy names, it is a very simple method. The simpler the Dharma practice method, the higher requirement it will be for the meditational power. This is the formula for the success rate. So, if you wish to make contact with Bodhisattva Maitreya, with your goal being set within the three realms, in the middle tiers of the heavens of the desire realm, and the method you use is the simplest and slowest speed of sound, it will be a big deal. The requirement for your meditational power will be very high as you must maintain your concentration for about 1 to 7 days. We have already explained this earlier. However, the benefit is that although the requirement is high, one sentence is missing here. As you see in the sutras about Bodhisattva Maitreya that I quoted earlier, there is no such sentence, without any disturbance of thoughts, and without inversion of the mind. Your concentration does not need to be so strong. That is, the requirement for your meditational power is not as high as that required to go to the Western land of extreme bliss. It is lower. Do you still need good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions? Yes, you still do. You also have to observe the precepts. You still need purifications through repentance and confession of sins before you can succeed. But the requirement is still considered low. Only the 10 wholesome deeds and the 5 precepts are required. Is there any requirement for wisdom? No, you are not required to have wisdom. But do you realize what causes you are planting? You want to call for help by making contact with Bodhisattva Maitreya, instead of going to the Tusita heaven directly by yourself. You are trying to make contact, which is a cause you have that will confine you. Your cause is to be in the middle level of the heavens of the desire realm within the 3 realms. Your cause is to use the slowest method, the speed of sound. If you only use the speed of sound without visualization, the success rate will be very low. Some people asked me during my Dharma propagation in Singapore recently. A disciple, who had newly taken refuge, came to dine with us. He asked me the same question 3 times in a row during the meal. I am grievously sinful, Master. I'm afraid I won't have enough meditational power to recite Namo Buddhaya Amitabha. I'm very sinful. I'm really worried that I can't be saved. I've violated many precepts. I can't be saved. He asked me this question 3 times in a row. Is it okay if I recite Namo Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha instead? He asked whether it was okay. He did not ask about the success rate. Would it be better for him to recite Namo Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha? He meant if it would be better for him since he was grievously sinful. He asked me this 3 times in a row before I finally answered him. Actually, I did not want to make it too clear since I could not explain it in detail, given the limited time during the meal. It is different now as I am teaching the Holy Dharma. I have several hours to preach the Holy Dharma, so I can analyze it slowly to you without missing anything. But he asked me the question 3 times in a row. I knew that the purpose of him coming for the meal was to ask this question. He would not feel at ease if he did not get the answer. Reluctantly, I answered his question. It is faster. Although it is faster, the result is quite different. Let us have a look. We are in the human realm. Where is Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha? He is in the hell realm, saving sentient beings. There is no requirement for a high level of meditational power. As you know, how difficult can it be for you to go to hell as a human being? If you commit some serious crimes in violation of the law, you will go into hell instantly. It is very fast, not difficult at all. You can go there without the need for meditational power. But if you wish to make contact with Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha in the hell to come to save you, you still need some meditational power to send your message into hell. But does it need to be at such a high level? The sutra does not say anything about this. I think the requirement is low. Why? Because of the closer distance. It is near, so it should be low. Do you still have to observe the 10 wholesome deeds? Of course, you do. If you do not observe the 10 wholesome deeds, there may be no one helping you deliver the message even if you have sent it into hell. However, these are still considered low requirements, as only the 10 wholesome deeds are needed. There is no need for wisdom. You are not required to have wisdom. According to the Sutra of the Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha's fundamental vows, his highest ability can only help you go to Trayastrimsa, the 33 heavens belonging to the 33 devas. As stated in the sutra, he cannot even escort you to the Tusita heaven, but only to Trayastrimsa. Do you know that some practitioners of other religions, who have some meditational power and virtuous merits, as well as have observed certain precepts, and done some good deeds, can also get to the 33 heavens? Nevertheless, this is already the highest level they can get to. Anyone who does not practice sitting for meditation will not be able to enter into the heavens of the form realm. I have meditated, done good deeds, and observed some precepts, although not those of your Buddhism. I observe them by myself. Some of such practitioners can, in fact, get to higher levels, such as the first or the second dhyana heavens. They can get there. But in general, according to the Sutra of the Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha's fundamental vows, the highest you can get to is only the 33 heavens, which is similar to other religions. It also depends on whether your good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions are good enough. You must understand that there are two kinds of heavenly realms. One kind is the heavenly realm with Buddhas and Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. Another kind is the heavenly realm without Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. If you wish to go to the heavenly realms with Buddhist holy Dharma teachings, you are required to have even more good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions. As such, people practicing other religions can only go to the heavenly realms without Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. If we know about these, we must accumulate more good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions to be reborn there ourselves. So, since the requirements are low for the other two aspects, you need high levels of good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions before you can go there. Therefore, you cannot go there by simply reciting Namo Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha a few times. You still have to meet some other conditions. You must remember that even if you manage to go there, you will still fall into lower rebirths after exhausting your virtuous merits. You are only kept safe for some time, but not forever. Besides, there are 3 calamities in heavens and on earth as explained in the last session. When they appear, all these realms will be destroyed. Then you have to start all over again. You will be chased by your karmic creditors again, who have had a hard time finding you after you have gone for so long. They will add more interest to your debts and make more trouble for you. So, can the problem be solved if you go to these places? Unless you go to a heavenly realm where there is Buddhist holy Dharma teaching, and you practice the holy Dharma diligently to get to the 5 heavens of non-returning. Then you can be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, or even attain Buddhahood. The problem is that you, as a human being, now already have someone who teaches you Buddhist holy Dharma, and asks you to practice the holy Dharma diligently. They even teach you some methods to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, or attain Buddhahood and reach the Dharma realm. But even so, you are unwilling to practice the holy Dharma. Then how would you possibly practice the holy Dharma when you are in the heavenly realm? You will be ecstatic once in the heavenly realm, without any pain. You will only want to enjoy happiness even more. There is no pain to remind you to practice the holy Dharma. So, you are definitely not going to practice it. Most people will not practice the holy Dharma when they get to the heavenly realm. But instead, some will be willing to practice the holy Dharma while being in the human realm. Why? Because they have experienced a lot of pain, so painful that it urges them to want to be liberated from samsara. This is because there are some stimulating factors in the human realm. There are no such stimulating factors in the heavenly realm. Therefore, if you say you will only begin practicing the holy Dharma once getting to the heavenly realm, I think your chance of success will be even lower than in the human realm. Since good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions are so important, we must read the Diamond Sutra when we are alive, accept it and arouse one thought of pure belief in order to plant immeasurable virtuous merits. What are the benefits? It can help us in our Dharma practice, because our Dharma practice is not good enough. We are unable to plant immeasurable virtuous merits in the few decades of our life. Without enough virtuous merits, I cannot even go to the Buddha's pure lands. What can we do then? We must read the Diamond Sutra. Can we choose not to read the Diamond Sutra, given it is so abstruse? Can we just recite Namo Buddhaya Amitabha? I already answered you in the previous session, the chances are low. If you want the chances to be higher, you must learn the Holy Dharma more and read the Diamond Sutra. For detailed explanations, please watch the 11th and the 12th episodes of the Compassion series. I will explain the sutras related to Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha now. The 3 sutras of Kshitigarbha include the Sutra of the Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha's fundamental vows, the 10-Will Sutra of the Essence of Earth, SKT, Dasakakra Kshitigarbha Sutra, and the Sutra on the Divination of the Effects of Good and Evil Actions. However, you must pay attention to the following points when reading these sutras. Firstly, a precept violator still has to repent before they can be saved, because supernatural powers are no match for the power of karma. Do not think it will be okay to just recite the Buddha's holy names a few times. This is impossible, as the success rate will be too low. Even if Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha is willing to assist you, he will still need your cooperation in certain aspects. There need to be some virtuous karmas available in your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio for him to rearrange in order to save you. If you have very little or no virtuous karma left, it is impossible for him to rearrange it to save you. He is just a bodhisattva, not a Buddha. So, his power is not strong enough. How could he help you? Even if it is a Buddha who comes to help you, it also has to depend on your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. This is the limitation of the 3 realms operating the law of causes and effects, a principle to gauge whether any sutra has been falsified or exaggerated. So, you must be extra careful when reading these sutras. Has something been added to them? Or do they talk about something completely inconsistent with the law of causes and effects? These are for you to judge for yourselves. I do not wish to talk so much, because I have offended too many people, so I will talk less. You judge by yourselves. I have already taught you the criteria. Therefore, all ordinary beings who wish to be rescued, and even Dharma practitioners, must remember one thing: believe deeply in the principle of cause and effect. Do not harbor the mindset that you will luck out by just reciting the Buddha's holy names or titles once or twice, and then all your sinful karmas will be cleared. Because some sutras have been tampered with, according to which your sins of tens of billions of kalpa can be eliminated once you have recited the holy names several times. So you are so happy that you can continue committing the sins, because you think you will get away with it by just reciting the holy names once or twice. This is against the law of causes and effects. Even if your karmic creditors hear you reciting the holy names, they will not let you go. The fact that they will not let you go no matter what you are reciting proves that these sutras have been tampered with. If you indulge your own behavior because of this and continue to do things that violate the precepts or commandments, you will bring your own destruction. This kind of self-deception will result in your own failure of being saved. If you mislead others with this kind of Dharma practice or rationale, saying that it is okay to just recite the Buddha's holy names 3 or 10 times, you will cause other people unable to be saved as well, since they believe in you. Why do today's Dharma propagators pay no attention to the precepts? Because they are misled by some sutras that have been tampered with. They have believed in these sutras, thinking it is okay to recite holy names once or twice without observing the precepts. They then continue to teach others to do the same thing. At the same time, they think it is very good to preach in this way. Even those illiterate people can learn from them. Their sect will then grow and expand quickly. So, they do not require Dharma practitioners to abide by the precepts. If you want people to observe the precepts, everyone will leave immediately. When no one follows them, their sects will shrink. Are they hoping to expand their sects, or to save sentient beings? I think they may have forgotten about saving sentient beings. It seems that they have already forgotten the conditions for sentient beings to be saved successfully. The result is that they do this in the name of saving people, but in reality, they have harmed many more people, and caused them to fall into a state where they cannot be saved. At the same time, this also leads to the fact that Buddhist holy Dharma only superficially guides people towards goodness, but there are no effective and quick methods to help them. In fact, these methods do exist, but have been wiped off by them. They have made it very simple. By reciting holy names, anything is possible. Some of the more advanced sutras that require you to visualize have been wiped off and ignored. They make you think it is okay to just recite the Buddha's holy names twice without visualization. So, there is no more visualization, without which one cannot save oneself. Consequently, the high-quality contents of the Buddhist holy Dharma will be hollowed out in disguised form, unable to assist sentient beings in attaining Buddhahood, being liberated from samsara, or being reborn in Buddha's pure lands. They cannot even achieve being reborn in Buddha's pure lands. It all boils down to the oversimplicity of their method without the actual content, which leads to failure. Let us have a look again. Some people said they wanted to recite the titles of sutras. Some sects claimed that there is no need to recite the Buddha's holy names or titles, and all one needs to do is recite the sutra's title. They are not making contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for help. They are just reciting some sutra's titles to accumulate merits. You are not even willing to make a phone call to contact Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come to save you. All you do is only recite a sutra's title. There is no specific Bodhisattva coming to save you, for you have not requested one. Do you know that the three realms operate the law of causes and effects? If you do not plant a cause, there will not be an effect. Suppose you do not call a Buddha's holy name. He vowed that when you call his holy name, he would come to save you upon receiving it. It will not work if he does not receive it, so he cannot save you. If he receives it, he will definitely come to save you. If you only recite the sutra's title, his vow did not say it would work just fine. So, he will not come to save you. What is the benefit of reciting sutra's titles? One can accumulate virtuous merits. How long does it take? It requires 3 great asamkhya kalpa to accumulate enough virtuous merits. Such a Dharma practice method of reciting sutra's titles is even slower than reciting Buddha's holy names. A disciple asked me this question. This is a really good question. He asked, when I am dead and have no more physical body support, how can I make some rhythmic sounds to recite mantras or Buddha's holy names? How do I recite mantras or Buddha's holy names to beg Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to respond to my call for help and come to save me? He asked such a question, which must be answered. It turns out that there are 2 different situations. One is while you are still alive, and you still have a physical body to make a sound with your vocal cord. Or there is someone who provides you with chanting assistance. One is when you are dead, and you chant by yourself. 2 situations are completely different. What is the difference? Let us first talk about you chanting it by yourself, or someone else chanting for you when you are alive. Remember, how do we increase the success rate? Firstly, you need a very focused meditational power when chanting. Secondly, your voice should be the same length, not sometimes long and sometimes short. Only then can you generate rhythm. That is, your voice should have a rhythm and be consistent. Everyone is different. I might prefer to be faster, and you might prefer slower. It does not matter. The most important thing is that it has to suit oneself. Fourthly, your spine should stay straight. Why? When you are still alive, the chi or winds in your body will run smoothly if your spine is straight, so that the vibration frequency effect produced by the rhythm will be strong, and it will be transmitted far away. Only then can you work with your meditational power to make contact and be in communion with Buddhas and Bodhisattva. That is why this is also one of the conditions. The volume of your voice is based on what your own ears can hear. It does not need to be so loud that even your neighbors can hear it. Neither should you be so quiet that even you yourself cannot hear it. In short, the volume is sufficient as long as it is within the frequencies that your own ears can hear. What happens when I die? After death, you can still hear the voices of the human realm, as well as the voices of the spiritual realm. However, the volume of sound will be different. The voices of the spiritual realm that you can hear will be clearer and louder. The voices of the human realm that you can hear will be more blurred and quieter, that is, being dampened. It would be even better if someone in the human realm provided you with chanting assistance. Because the deceased can still follow the voices of the human realm that they hear and then chant together with the others in their own minds. Suppose the rhythms of those providing chanting assistance and that of the deceased can be in harmony and blended together. They had already cooperated with each other when the deceased was still alive, and both parties did not differ too much. In addition, the people providing chanting assistance are all very focused. Their voices' volume, length, and rhythm are all the same. In that case, it will help the deceased concentrate and improve their meditational power easily. It will then be easier for them to achieve the state of without any disturbance of thoughts and inversion of the mind. But you must remember, now we are talking about the dead who can no longer speak, but only recites in their mind. What will happen if they recite in their mind? Without someone providing chanting assistance, it will depend on the state of the deceased's body at that time. Are they newly dead? Or have they been dead for a while? Or have they been dead for a long time? It will be all different. It depends on how many material substances the deceased's body has pulled together at that time to determine how many and the volume of sounds they could make. Can they say 1, 2, 3, 4 or make sounds of certain frequencies? Or how loud can they get? It will be all different. Can they produce some rhythms? It also depends on what kind of material substances they have pulled together. If someone is newly dead and has not yet pulled any material substances together to make a sound, or the material substances they have pulled together are too little to make a sound, they can only recite it in their mind. It is done with visualization, and it is recited in mind. These are the reasons why you must train your visualization ability when you are still alive to enhance your mental strength. But I didn't like to visualize while being alive. Everyone taught me to recite Namo Buddha Amitabha with my mouth. None of them taught me to recite it with my mind. Neither did they teach me how to visualize. Because after we die, we can no longer rely on the vibration frequency of our voice, such as the use of vocal cords, and the vibration of certain material substances, to make sounds. We can only rely on the vibration frequency of thoughts. What is meant by the vibration frequency of thoughts? Our thoughts will also generate a vibration frequency, but it is very weak. If you never practice visualization during your lifetime, your mental strength will be even weaker. How will your vibration frequency be? The vibration frequency from the visualization of your mind will be weak. As such, if Dharma practitioners do not train themselves in visualization during their lifetime, their ability to generate vibration frequency with their minds after death will be very low, or even none. What will they have instead? Only distraction. Do they still know how to think in their minds? Yes, they do, but only about scattered thoughts. Therefore, if the deceased seek help by reciting Buddha's holy names in their minds, that is, visualizing Buddha's holy names after death, their success rate is very low, as they do not have proper visualization. That is because after death, visualizing Buddha's holy names is the same as reciting Buddha's holy names in mind. Do you notice that some of the sutras translate it as visualizing Buddha's holy names, but not reciting Buddha's holy names? That is because one cannot make any sound after death. Therefore, the Buddha said you should train yourself to visualize Buddha's holy names. You must think of Buddha's holy names, and visualize Buddha's holy names. He did not ask you to recite or chant the Buddha's holy names. So, it is different. It is not reciting Buddha's holy names. It is not about reciting with your mouth, or using the vibration frequency of your vocal cord. What should you use instead? You should use the vibration frequency of visualization. That is why you must train yourself to visualize when you are alive. All Buddhist sutras say so. But why do people not teach like this? Because they do not know. These people do not understand that. When they saw the phrase visualizing Buddha's holy names, they mistook it for reciting Buddha's holy names in Chinese. The words visualizing and reciting look very similar. So, they asked people to read aloud the Buddha's holy names with their mouths. That is how you have been taught the wrong way. And then they said, this is taught by the Buddhist sutras. You must keep reciting until you gasp for breath. They have thus taught you incorrectly. How do you communicate with the sentient beings in the spiritual realm after you die? You communicate via the use of telepathy. However, this kind of mental communication is very scattered and lacks meditational power, which is different from your usual mind training on contemplating or visualizing Buddha's holy names. If you have been well trained while you are alive, your vibration frequency must be excellent. Your mind power will be very strong, and the vibration frequency will be strong, which will make it easier for you. Plus, if you are very focused and can execute your meditational power, it will be easier for you to make contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come to save you. Do you know that the speed of mind is very fast? If your meditational power is high, and you have been trained well during your lifetime, it will undoubtedly be great. Is it okay if we only recite Buddha's holy names in mind without making a sound while we are alive? Of course not, because you have not yet reached this state of meditational power. According to the sutras, people not only have to recite Buddha's holy names in mind, but also the Buddha's pure lands in mind. They have to visualize a Buddha's appearance and his pure land. If you only recite the Buddha's holy names in mind, only visualize the Buddha's holy names, but nothing else, you will lack a lot of things. According to the law of causes and effects, if you lack a lot of things, your chances of failure will be high. Therefore, if the vibration frequency produced from reciting in mind is generated by a very focused meditational power, and it can maintain for a long time, for about 1 to 7 days, without any disturbance of thoughts and inversion of the mind, one can still make contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. If you can cooperate with the visualization of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and their pure lands, the vibration frequency of the reciting in mind will be very strong. It is because you are visualizing several things. What are they? You are visualizing a Buddha's pure land, which means that you are establishing a connection with its pure magnetic field. Then you visualize the Buddha who is in the pure land, so you are establishing a connection with the Buddha's magnetic field as well. And then you also visualize the Buddha's holy name. That is, you specifically ask him to help you. You cooperate with these three things plus the speed of mind. You are visualizing with your mind. It is via the speed of mind, so the connection is powerful. There are many specific connection points, at least a few more additional points. It is speedy because of the same azimuth, the same magnetic field, and the same kind of vibration frequency. If the deceased is a person with excellent nature of mind and good roots, and has sufficient virtuous merits and positive conditions in his or her karmic portfolio, these will be favorable conditions. Suppose I visualize pretty well, but I do not observe the precepts, and my virtuous and evil karmic portfolio is awful. I have done very few good deeds, but committed a lot of evil karma. What should I do then? It will not work even if you have done well in all these visualization practices. You must cooperate with other conditions. Because such connection via the speed of mind will become an automatic projection that can connect with the Buddha's Pure Lands automatically, and it is extremely fast. But it is restricted by some conditions: your nature of mind, your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, your virtuous merits, causes and conditions need to match with this Buddha's Pure Land. If you do not observe the precepts, and your nature of mind as well as virtuous and evil karmic portfolio are bad, and your good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions are all weak, then they will not match with the Buddha's Pure Land. Even if you have done all the things mentioned previously for visualization, you have no way to establish an extremely fast automatic projection. Where will your projection be directed? It will be projected to the appearance of the Buddha emanated by your karmic creditors. Now you wish to visualize this Buddha. If your karmic creditors know that you like the Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land, they will emanate a Buddha Amitabha for you to connect to. Since you really adore the Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land, they will conjure up their version of Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land for you, but it will be in the realm of hungry ghosts. Your karmic creditor's nature of mind is surely evil. They only want to take revenge, so their nature of mind will not be good. Your nature of mind is also not good. So, take a guess, will you connect with the Buddha and his Pure Land in the heavenly realm, or will you connect with the so-called Pure Land but actually a ghost land projected by your karmic creditors to deceive you? At the same time, they will also take on the appearance of a Buddha, but in fact, it is an elusive emanation of a ghost. Where will you be connected to? And it is extremely fast. Where will you be speedily reborn? You will be reborn in the realm of hungry ghosts. You cannot go to the Buddha's Pure Land then. It is true. So it turns out that you have to meet a lot of conditions. That is why the Buddhist sutras say that you must not lack good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions. What do the causes and conditions refer to? These are called the causes and conditions. If your nature of mind is not good, you will be connected to bad places. If the causes and conditions are not good, you will fail. So, you must consider a lot of factors. Do not read the sutras carelessly and listen to the misinterpretations of those who have no realizations, and do not understand the Buddhist holy Dharma. Their knowledge of Buddhist holy Dharma is incomprehensive. But in order to attract you to follow them to learn Buddhist holy Dharma, they claim that everything is possible. They interpret the Buddhist sutras as nothing is impossible. Despite knowing that some sutras have been tampered with, they still use these sutras to explain to you. You will then be misled. Consequently, you will fail to be saved. Is it as simple as not being saved? Of course not. You will fall into the realm of hungry ghosts in no time and be caught by your karmic creditors. Your future fate will be miserable. Therefore, apart from having a good nature of mind, good roots, and a favorable karmic portfolio, the deceased must also know how to visualize the program of automatically going to the Buddha's Pure Land. Since relying on making a connection could go wrong, is it better for one to use a program to go there by oneself? This is the Dharma practice method as taught by esoteric Buddhism for one to get to the Buddha's Pure Land by oneself, instead of waiting for Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come to one's rescue. However, those esoteric Buddhism practitioners still have some wrong teachings from others. For example, they do not observe the precepts and have bad nature of mind. They claimed that they are guaranteed to get to the Buddha's Pure Land since they have received this empowerment and learned this Dharma practice method, and they know about this visualization program. These are all wrong. Because everything follows the nature of mind. It will connect with the nature of mind and be projected automatically, not controlled by you. Eventually, you will not succeed in your Dharma practice. There is no difference. However, there is a benefit of the visualization practice, that esoteric Buddhism teaches you to go to the Buddha's Pure Land by yourself. What is the benefit? It is not a visualization practice whereby one makes contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and waits for their assistance. It is one going directly to the Buddha's Pure Land by oneself. The benefit of going there directly by yourself is that you need not wait. Nor will you be intercepted and kidnapped midway by your karmic creditors when they seize the opportunity during the gap of your losing focus. Suppose you wait for Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to save you, but you cannot maintain your meditational power for as long as 1 to 7 days, and so your visualization is interrupted. In that case, your karmic creditors can intercept you during the gap when you have deluded thoughts during the visualization practice. Alternatively, they may lure you to the fake Buddha's Pure Land and Buddhas projected by them. Or, they might straightaway kidnap you and take you away. So, you must be careful. Nonetheless, if you know this esoteric Buddhism's visualization program of automatically going to the Buddha's Pure Land, you can actually increase your success rate. But you must keep your precepts well. The precept requirement will be much higher, unlike that for being reborn in the Western land of extreme bliss. According to the Sutra on the Buddha Amitabha, you are only required to observe the 5 precepts and the 10 wholesome deeds. These are far from enough. If you follow esoteric Buddhism's Dharma practice programming, there are a lot more precepts to observe. The demand for precepts is much higher. It is no longer a low requirement, but at least medium to high requirements. If not, what will the consequence be? You will end up in the realm of hungry ghosts in no time. Let us have a look. Are there any other methods besides reciting Buddha's holy names? Would mantra chanting be any different? The meaning of some mantras is equal to some Buddha's holy names. When you translate some of the mantras, they are actually some of the Buddha's holy names. Some mantras are actually sound frequencies, a Buddha's own vibration frequency. Some mantras are both the Buddha's holy name and the Buddha's own vibration frequency. It turns out that some Buddhas use their own vibration frequencies as their holy names. So, I can tell you that among the 3 different kinds of mantras, it would be easiest and fastest for you to be in communion with a Buddha if the mantra you chant is both the Buddha's holy name and the Buddha's own vibration frequency. If you use the same level of meditational power to chant the mantra, the time you need, that is, the time you need to succeed will be more than twice as fast as the above 2 types of mantras. Twice as fast is the least, it can be more than twice as fast. Therefore, the success rate of chanting this kind of mantra is relatively higher. Due to the unique vibration frequency of mantra chanting, one will be in communion with a Buddha several times faster by chanting a mantra compared to chanting ordinary Buddha's titles or holy names. Hence, the success rate will be again relatively higher. But if you say, what if I complement it with visualization practice? This is one of the most basic Dharma practice methods of abiding in notions recommended by all Buddhist sutras, given its faster and higher success rate. According to the 3 sutras of the Pure Land school of Buddhism, you are still required to visualize, if you wish to be reborn in the Western land of extreme bliss. However, when some people explain these sutras, they have tampered with some of the content. They highlight those Buddhist sutras that contain incorrect Dharma practice elements, erroneous messages, and wrong information for you to read, thus misleading you. The truth is that all sutras require us to carry out visualization. The propagators of Pure Land school of Buddhism nowadays do not require Dharma practitioners to visualize, because they do not understand it and lack realizations. What does lacking realizations mean? It means that someone has not yet reached a certain level in their Dharma practice, so they totally do not understand the principles and situations of how the whole three realms operate. They cannot see the truth, and hence explain it according to their own perceptions. Therefore, the Dharma practice method of only reciting Buddha's holy names that they advocate has a very low success rate. There are many kinds of visualization programs in Dharma practice. The conditions and success rates involved are different. How should we choose? Even if it succeeds, the outcomes will vary. Will there be a difference in where it takes you to? It turns out that if you recite Bodhisattva Ksatagarbha's holy name and take refuge from him, assuming that you are able to find him and he is able to help you, you can only get to the 33 heavens at most. This is the truth. You must know that the results are different even if you succeed. How should we choose? You must remember that no matter what result you choose, you must not lack good roots, virtuous merits, causes and conditions. You must readjust your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. So, while you are looking for some Dharma practice methods when you are alive, you must keep these in mind, which Dharma practice methods can easily readjust your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. Do they differ in terms of speed? This is very important. The Diamond Sutra does provide a method. It turns out that as long as you arouse one thought of pure belief, it means that all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can see you and be interconnected with you. You will thus accumulate immeasurable virtuous merits. This is an excellent method for the general public to learn. Remember to watch the 11th and 12th lecture videos of our Compassion series again. Now, I will tell a real case that took place on the 21st of November 2018. It was a few days ago. A Buddhist believer emailed me with the subject, a sincere request for Holy Dharma. He wished to ask for the Holy Dharma. This is what he said. Guru Master, I can feel your great devotion on YouTube. In today's Buddhism, there are many people practicing the Pure Land school, and there are also many Dharma masters imparting the Buddha contemplation method. I hope you can provide a detailed explanation of the Buddha contemplation method for the public to understand better, especially the chapter of Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta attaining perfect penetration through Buddha contemplation. I deeply feel that although there are only a few lines, the meaning of the words is profound. When I was 27, probably due to a virtuous cause of my past life, I was led into Buddhism by Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. I once made a wish to follow Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as my teachers. Therefore, I must be reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land in this life. That is, he wishes to be reborn in the Western land of extreme bliss. I have come all the way, and I am now 53 years old, having been stumbling along in between confusion and awakening. That is, sometimes he feels confused, but sometimes he seems to be able to comprehend something. I have become a practitioner of Buddha contemplation now. I am making this request in order to deepen the Dharma practice of my own as well as the public. He is a Buddhist disciple called Zhong Jingxian. I am going to answer his request with an explanation now. But you must pay attention to what he said. He wishes to be reborn in the Amitabha's Pure Land. This is a Dharma practice of abiding in notions. To know what Dharma practice of abiding in notions means, you can rewatch the 10th episode of our Compassion series. The Dharma practice of abiding in notions means that one does not visualize that emptiness, neither existence nor voidness in their visualization practice. What do they visualize? They visualize specific forms or appearances, the Western land of extreme bliss and Buddha Amitabha. Suppose I aim to be reborn there now. This is a Dharma practice of abiding in notions since my goal has already been set. I am determined to be reborn there. Where is it? In the three realms. What must there be in the three realms? There must be forms and appearances. So, if you must be reborn in the Western land of extreme bliss, needless to say, your Dharma practice is one of abiding in notions. But if you want to attain Buddhahood and enter into the Dharma realm, needless to say, it must be a Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. If not, you will be unable to match. So you can tell at a glance that the Dharma method that he practices is one of abiding in notions. Also, look carefully, these three words are contemplation, not recitation. What does it mean? It means visualization. It is not just reciting with the mouth. You cannot recite with your mouth after death. What do you use? You use your mind to visualize. Okay, let us take a look. The chapter of Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta, Attaining Perfect Penetration, through Buddha Contemplation, is from the 5th volume of the Sarangama Sutra. And it is one of the major scriptures of the Pure Land School's 5 sutras and 1 Abhidharma. You may question, in the previous lecture, you said that the Pure Land School of Buddhism only has 3 sutras and 1 Abhidharma. But how come there are 5 sutras and 1 Abhidharma now? This is because some well-known senior monks believed that 3 sutras and 1 Abhidharma are not enough, and the Sarangama Sutra should be included. They continued to add in more sutras, so there are a total of 5 sutras and 1 Abhidharma now. The Sarangama Sutra is one of the sutras they have added. What is this chapter about? It is about Lord Buddha Shakyamuni asking various great bodhisattvas at the Sarangama assembly what Dharma methods of accomplishment of the Buddha path. What is the accomplishment of the Buddha path? It means to attain Buddhahood. What he meant is, how do you enter into the Dharma realm? It means to enter into the Dharma realm. According to this sutra, Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta replied, one can use the Dharma method of directly going to the Western land of extreme bliss via Buddha contemplation. He answered the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's question in this way. What is Buddha contemplation? It is a visualization method by contemplating a Buddha's appearance. What is it? It is a Dharma practice of abiding in notions. What else? Where is one going? To go to the Western land of extreme bliss, meaning to enter into the 3 realms. The answer appears to be irrelevant to the question. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni asked how one can enter into the Dharma realm. He asked, what method do you have to enter into the Dharma realm? How do you practice the holy Dharma? But Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta replied, we are going to enter into the 3 realms, by contemplating the Buddha's holy name and visualizing the Buddha's appearance. This is an irrelevant answer. The sutra continues by saying that the key is to take hold of all 6 roots and keep pure thoughts in succession. That is, one needs to concentrate on one's mind and focus on contemplating. One must always contemplate the Buddha and keep it in mind continuously. This is what keep pure thoughts in succession means. What are the 6 roots? They are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which have been explained previously. Hold all of the 6 roots together, and concentrate on the visualization of a single thought. Such visualization is a pure thought of contemplating only the Buddha and his pure land. In fact, only the Buddha's appearance, but not even the pure land is mentioned here. One only needs to visualize the Buddha's appearance. Suppose one can continue this kind of pure, focused, and single-minded visualization in succession, that is, without any interruptions. In other words, if it remains non-stop for 1 to 7 days without any other thoughts intervening in between, this is called in succession. If this can be achieved, what effect will you get? The Buddha will surely come and appear before them now, and they will definitely see the Buddha. You will definitely see the Buddha immediately. Without the aid of other expedient means. This sentence has left no wiggle room. You must keep it in mind. After this sentence is written into this sutra, there is no wiggle room left in the whole sutra. What does it mean by without the aid of other expedient means? It means no other auxiliary methods are needed. Without the aid of other expedient means. How do we prove that a sutra is authentic or fabricated? After this sentence is written down, it becomes self-defeating. You only need to think of this Buddha's appearance, but nothing else. Their minds will be awakened naturally. Your mind will be awakened naturally. That is, you will not have a situation of being blurred and unable to see the Buddha clearly. You will open up your mind immediately and see the Buddha. Let us continue to go through this sutra. The sutra states, the Dharma Prince Mahasthamaprapta. That is, Bodhisattva Mahasthamaprapta. Together with 52 bodhisattvas of the same practice. Some have interpreted it like this. Do you know that to cultivate this bodhisattva path of Mahayana Buddhism, we have to go through 52 stages, that is, 52 different levels of Dharma practice, before we can attain Buddhahood? How does the Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's Primary Karmas explain the 52 stages? It states that there are 52 stages of Dharma practice that we have to go through prior to accomplishing Buddhahood. There is also another version of the explanation. The Avatamsaka Sutra states that there are only 41 stages. Why? Its classification and distinction are somehow different. You can watch our lecture video on the classification of Dharma practice in Buddhism on the YouTube TV channel of Dudjom Buddhist Association International for a detailed explanation of these 52 stages. Therefore, some people say that the Sarangama Sutra is fabricated. Why? The 52nd stage is the attainment of Buddhahood. And you say all bodhisattvas of the same practice of the 52nd stage, that is, they have all attained the 52nd stage. In other words, they have all attained Buddhahood and should no longer be called bodhisattvas. They all raised immediately and bowed at the Buddha's feet to answer the Buddha's question. Is this not self-contradictory, if the bodhisattvas in question had already attained Buddhahood? Of course, some consider such an explanation incorrect. It does not refer to the 52 stages of Dharma practice. It should not be interpreted as all of the bodhisattvas who have attained the 52nd stage rose. The correct explanation is that 52 bodhisattvas who were of the same level of Dharma practice stood up to answer the Buddha's question. Which explanation is correct? Think about it yourself. In short, there are two explanations available. Some say that it is contradictory. Some have come forward to claim that it is a fabricated sutra. Let us now continue. They arose from their seats, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and said to the Buddha, I recall the past. Bodhisattva Mahasthamaprapta said, I remember before. As many kalpa ago, as there are sands in the Ganges, there are so many kalpa like the sands in the Ganges. A kalpa is a long, long period. As I said before, it means many billions of years, and after billions of reincarnations. That is, it is a countless period of time as many kalpa, as the number of sands in the Ganges. He said, a Buddha was born, named Infinite Light. Namely, Buddha Amitabha. Infinite Light is one of Buddha Amitabha's holy names. In the same kalpa, there are 12 successive Tathagatas. During this kalpa, a total of 12 Buddhas appeared one after another. The last one of them, the last Buddha among them, was named Light surpassing the sun and the moon. That Buddha taught me the Buddha contemplation samadhi. The Buddha contemplation samadhi is the meditative concentration acquired through a visualization practice of abiding in notions. Since one needs to contemplate and visualize a Buddha's appearance, it is called Buddha contemplation. Samadhi means meditative concentration. The attainment of this kind of meditative concentration is called the Buddha contemplation samadhi. It is the name of a specific meditational power gained from a visualization practice of abiding in notions. Suppose there is someone, for instance, who specifically remembers the other one. He or she focuses on thinking specifically of one thing, and the other one specifically forgets. One person keeps missing another person, but the other person does not miss him or her. It is unrequited love. Such two persons, these two people. Even if they meet, it will be as if they never meet. Even if these two people meet, they will pass by each other. Because it is unrequited love, not mutual. Even if they see each other, it will be as if they never see each other. They cannot see even if they are in front of each other. Suppose the two persons remember each other, but if the two people miss each other very much and think of each other all the time, that is, mutual love. And the two of them miss each other deeply, so deep of the mutual longing towards each other. And stay the same from birth to death, they harbor such thoughts from birth to death. Sticking together like a figure and its shadow, just like a person's body and its shadow, which are inseparable forever. Never being at odds, they will never be separated. Tathagatas of the 10 directions, all the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Pity and think of sentient beings, they are compassionate towards sentient beings, and they often remember and miss sentient beings. Like a mother remembering her child, like a mother missing her child. Let me tell you the truth here. The Dharma nature of a real Buddha is all-pervasive. He knows all and how everything works in the universe. He knows it all. He has an intrinsic awareness there. Do you consider this intrinsic awareness a kind of thought that is constantly focused on missing you? In fact, a real Buddha will not be like this. He will not only focus on one thing. His intrinsic awareness is the perfect enlightenment that can pervade the empty space without any deviation. He will not only keep thinking about one particular thing. He knows everything. The explanation here, two persons remember each other, are likened to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and you remembering each other, often like a mother remembering her child, just like a mother missing her children and always remembering their appearances. But I can tell you that it is not the case. What is said here is just an example. So I will just continue to explain it. If the child runs away, the Buddha constantly thinks about your appearance and misses you. But sentient beings are like the child who has run away and ignores the mother. What is the use of the mother's missing her children? Even if the mother often thinks about and visualizes her children, what is the use? But if the child remembers the mother, but if sentient beings constantly think of their mother's appearances. Here it means thinking of the Buddha's appearance. As much as the mother remembers her child, like a mother missing and constantly thinking of her children. It means that the Buddha is visualizing your appearance as you are visualizing theirs. So, the two think of each other mutually. As such, there will be an interconnection between the two. This is what it means. It continues, but if the child remembers the mother as much as the mother remembers her child, then in their numerous lives, this mother and son, like the Buddha and sentient beings, even after going through many lives and deaths, they will not be far apart. They will be close to each other. It will not be one in the Akanistha while the other in the human realm. They will stay very close. If the minds of sentient beings, if sentient beings' minds remember the Buddha, often think of the Buddha, and contemplate the Buddha, visualize and are mindful of the Buddha, the Buddha will surely come and appear before them now. The Buddha will appear immediately. They will definitely see the Buddha. You will see that Buddha right away. Because you are visualizing him, it is the same as seeing him. But does it mean that the Buddha will really appear in front of you? There is room for discussion on this. And they are not far from the Buddha, they will not be far from each other. It will not be one in the Akanistha, while the other one in the human realm. Without the aid of other expedient means. This sentence has left no wiggle room. It should not have been written in the sutra. Once it is written, you will know it is a fake sutra, because there is no wiggle room left. You only need to visualize the Buddha's appearance without any other methods to assist you. Their minds will be awakened naturally. Your mind will open up naturally, being able to realize and see things. It is the same as those who have been near the perfume, as if you were wearing perfume. Will carry the fragrance on their bodies, your body naturally emits fragrance. As you are wearing perfume, for sure you carry a fragrant smell. It is called the adornment of fragrant light. That is, it happens automatically. When I was in the causal ground, Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta said. That is, when he was still practicing the holy Dharma prior to becoming a great Bodhisattva and attaining supernatural powers. With a Buddha contemplating mind, he had been visualizing the Buddha this way, with his mind contemplating the Buddha's appearance. Consequently, I entered into the endurance of no birth. First of all, remembering Buddha and contemplating Buddha is a kind of visualization practice. What is the endurance of no birth? The endurance of no birth means the endurance in the realization of the no birth of dharmas, SKT Anatpatikadharmaksanti. It is the meditational power obtained when one practices Mahayana Buddhism and has reached the seventh ground in the Bodhisattva path, that is, when reaching the state of the seventh stage. What are the benefits of obtaining such kind of meditational power? One will no longer have retrogressions. You will never lose faith in Buddhism and Dharma practice, because of the harassment by any karmic forces from any of your karmic creditors, or any environmental factors. You will never recede or turn back. According to the Treatise on the Great Virtue of Wisdom SKT Mahaprajna Pramita Sastra, Volume 10, as bodhisattvas live in the seventh abode, they will attain the endurance in the realization of the no birth of dharmas. In other words, if a bodhisattva who practices Mahayana has reached the seventh ground of meditational power, they will obtain this endurance in the realization of the no birth of dharmas. Let us continue. Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta then said, I, too, entered into the seventh ground of meditational power, living peacefully in the endurance in the realization of the no birth of dharmas. Now in this realm, I am in the three realms now. I am gathering in all practitioners of Buddha contemplation. I only teach the method of Buddha contemplation to all Dharma practitioners so as to bring them back to the Pure Land. This is to enable them to be reborn in the Pure Land. Now the Buddha asks about the perfect penetration. The Buddha asked me whether I have any Dharma practice method of attaining perfect penetration. I have no choice, there is no need for me to choose. I have no other choice, either. But to take hold of all six roots, hold all the six roots in one focused thought. And keep pure thoughts in succession. This thought must be continuous, not intermittent. We can then enter into a state to obtain samadhi. We can then enter into this meditative state. Samadhi means meditative concentration. We can then enter into this meditative concentration. This is the number one method. This method is the best, thus called the number one. Here, we can again see that the argument of this sutra revealed its flaws. How can this method be number one? This is a Dharma practice of abiding in notions. Only the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions can be called the number one. The Dharma practice of abiding in notions cannot be called the number one. There is a flaw revealed here. Well, let us now see what Dharma practice methods are available. They include reciting Buddha's holy names, chanting mantras, reciting sutras, or the titles of sutras. Or we can visualize Buddhas or visualize ourselves to be the Buddha, that is, visualize ourselves to be the Yidam, or visualize Buddha's pure lands. Or we can practice the Great Perfection, Heart Sutra, and Diamond Sutra to practice emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. And we need to practice the holy Dharma teachings, and correct our behavioral formula and programming in our daily life. We must observe the precepts in order to succeed. The first three are Dharma practices of abiding in notions, because they require one to focus on something. The fourth is a Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. It requires one to release oneself completely in order to reveal one's own intrinsic awareness. So, it will not be abiding in notions. Once abiding in notions, one will be trapped in the notions, forms, or appearances, and one's intrinsic awareness will not reveal. So, one must adopt the methods of non-abiding in notions in order to succeed in their Dharma practice. Only then can one enter into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood. One will never attain Buddhahood with the Dharma practice of abiding in notions. What is the purpose of you adopting the Dharma practice of abiding in notions, then? Because you wish to go to Buddha's pure lands. If you succeed, you can go to Buddha's pure lands. What if you fail? You will take rebirth according to your karma. If you practice the Dharma method of non-abiding in notions, what will happen if you succeed? You will attain Buddhahood. What will happen if you are unsuccessful? You will take rebirth according to your karma. But what if I practice both methods of abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions? What will happen if I combine both methods of abiding in notions and non-abiding notions in the same Dharma practice ritual? If you succeed, you can first attain Buddhahood. In case of failure, you still have the opportunity to be reborn in Buddha's pure lands. But if that also fails, then you will take rebirth according to your karma. As such, we will have one more option. I have already explained this diagram in the 10th episode of the Compassion series. I am just repeating it now, and I am going to add a few more things, of course. If you are reborn in Buddha's pure lands below the 5 heavens of non-returning, what will happen to you after your virtuous rewards are exhausted? You will continue to reincarnate. If you can be reborn in Buddha's pure lands within the 5 heavens of non-returning, you can be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. What is the decisive factor of whether you can be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence? It is dependent upon whether the Dharma practice method you adopt is in line with the factors for entering into the 5 heavens of non-returning, and the level of the person who practices the Dharma method. How do you increase the success rate of your Dharma practice? It is to combine the Dharma practice methods of abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions. In addition, you apply and integrate these methods into your daily lives. You manage to correct your own behavioral formula and programming. You have observed the precepts, repented, and rearranged your own virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. You continuously accumulate virtuous merits in order to rearrange your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, and you have many virtuous causes and positive conditions to assist you. Needless to ask, your success rate will be high as you have all the required elements. You also turn them into actions to increase the success rate. If you adopt the Dharma practice of abiding in notions without complementing it with the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions, you will not master emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, and there is no way you can attain Buddhahood. You will never succeed. In view of the content of Sarangama Sutra being full of contradictions, and there are different opinions about the time of translation and the translator, if you check through historical records, you will find that the contents are contradictory. Therefore, it is considered a fabricated sutra that has been tampered with too much. If you translate the word contemplating as reciting, that is, to recite with mouth, what will be the consequences of this misleading? A Japanese translation expert once pointed out that the Chinese translation is erroneous. According to Sanskrit, this word contemplating should be translated as visualizing or thinking. Yet it was not translated with further elaboration. And then some misinterpreted it as reciting and asked people to recite Buddha's holy names. This has caused a very big misleading and harmed many sentient beings. So, some people have already expressed their dissatisfaction. However, a large number of Dharma propagators still insist on misleading all sentient beings when explaining Buddhist sutras. Why? They are worried that sentient beings may be scared away by the Dharma practice methods that are too hard. This will make their sects decline. So, what can they do? They can only explain the sutras as simple and as superficial as possible. The simpler and shallower, the better. Only then people will believe it. But this is equivalent to deceiving the sentient beings and violating one of the 5 precepts, the precept of lying. As a result, this has misled many Dharma practitioners into committing suicide to avoid suffering. They thought they could be reborn in Buddha's pure lands instantly by reciting Buddha's holy names, which is better than living now. So, they committed suicide. Many of the Dharma practitioners failed to be saved after death, because they thought it was okay to recite Buddha's holy names after death, or have others provide chanting assistance for them. Too bad, it turned out to be a failure. They were deceived by others and caught by their karmic creditors, who had emanated into a Buddha's appearance. They were caught, trapped, and as a result, failed to be saved. So, they were really miserable. There are also some Dharma practitioners who gave up the Dharma practice methods that could really help them. Originally, had they followed and practiced these methods, with their good abilities, they could have saved themselves. But now, they are trapped and cannot save themselves. Neither can they make contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. What can they do? They have chosen a Dharma practice method with a high failure rate instead. What can they do? It is all because someone misled them, and they misbelieved this person. Whose fault is it? Simply put, it is the fault of both parties. Who is more at fault? It varies from person to person. If you only read this paragraph in the chapter of Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta attaining perfect penetration through Buddha contemplation from the 5th volume of the Sarangama Sutra, its content mentions having the 6 roots: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind focused on a single matter without any interference. Such focus can enable one to enter into a state of meditational power successfully. And with this high purity of meditational power, one should be able to make contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Is this statement correct? It is incorrect. It is because of the absence of precepts. It has left no wiggle room, by stating, without the aid of other expedient means. There is no need for any other methods to assist, not even the precepts. Such a statement has left no wiggle room. Hence, there is no need for a good nature of the mind. You did not say that one must have a good nature of the mind. Neither did you say one must observe the precepts, such as the 5 precepts and the 10 wholesome deeds. Even with a high level of meditational power, in fact, it is still impossible for one to make contact with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It is because the nature of the minds between each other is different. The magnetic fields are also different. Therefore, it is impossible to connect. If you are connected purely through forms and appearances, some ghosts in the realm of hungry ghosts can pretend to be Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and use their appearances to connect you to the realm of hungry ghosts instead of the Buddha's pure land. Where will you be connected to? The realm of hungry ghosts. This passage of the Sarangama Sutra also shows that since this kind of Dharma practice has no support from the precepts, and no need for the wisdom to be aroused, the requirement for the level of meditational power will be very high. The Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta himself said, "I need to have a very high level of meditational power, and keep pure thoughts in succession. The pure thoughts must remain without any interruptions." That is, the meditational power needs to be very high, as he himself admitted. This passage of the Sarangama Sutra is enough to prove that in order to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land, it is indeed necessary for one to carry out visualization. This is a very strong proof. Therefore, if not distorted by others, the explanation of this passage still has some truth. It provides the rationale that you must carry out the visualization practice in order to go to the Buddha's Pure Land, and you need to have a very high level of meditational power during the visualization, which must be without any interruptions. But how come Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta, as a great bodhisattva, gave irrelevant remarks in this passage? The Buddha asked you how to attain Buddhahood, but you answered the Buddha how to go to the Buddha's Pure Land, and you mentioned nothing about observing the precepts and the need for wisdom. Instead, you emphasized without the aid of other expedient means. There is no need to use other methods to assist. This is a contradiction. As a great bodhisattva, he should not have made such mistakes or omissions. Because of this sutra has been said to be fabricated. It is well justified, because the sutra misses some very important elements. Thus, this passage could only be written by someone who understands little, or has a superficial knowledge of Buddhist holy Dharma. So, some believe that it was written by ordinary people, who did not understand the Buddhist holy Dharma. It was definitely not what the Buddha said, because Buddhas or great bodhisattvas will not make such mistakes or omissions. Only some religious fanatics, who were radical in their thinking, and those who neither understood the Buddhist holy Dharma wholly nor had realizations, would have made such mistakes or omissions. What harm can it cause if we practice according to the Dharma practice method of a fabricated sutra? A disciple of mine emailed me on the 20th of October. Initially, I wanted to explain this email on last Sunday's Upavasata, after the recitation of the precepts. But I had to explain many disciples' emails at that time. By the time I was going to explain hers, it was already too late. So, I planned to explain it in the future, but then I received this email from this believer a few days ago. At first, I did not wish to tell publicly that the Sarangama Sutra is a fabricated sutra, because I had already offended too many people. One of my three-root gurus, Ven Guru Lao Yuiche, once said that the Sarangama Sutra is a fabricated sutra, but asked us not to get involved in such a heated debate. He admonished us not to speak out. So, we have been keeping silent all this while. But because of my disciples this email on the 20th of October, I knew that I could no longer keep silent, because even my own disciple might get into trouble. But initially, I just wanted to explain it internally on last Sunday's Upavasata. However, due to the limited time, I could not do it. I planned to do it at the next Upavasata. Then I received the email from this believer. After much consideration, I thought it might not be so good to save only my own disciples, but not other sentient beings. Maybe it is the cause and condition that I must speak out now. So, I will officially explain it right now. I must emphasize that I have no intention to offend anyone. In fact, I am just being compassionate for all sentient beings and wish to save them all. I hope you understand. What is the email about? This email is very important. My disciple is called Jingyi. She said she had violated the 36th of the Bodhisattva precepts. I've completed some homework on the precepts in October. This is because I stipulated that all disciples need to make notes after watching our lecture videos on YouTube and submit them to us. They need to take notes to prove that they have watched the videos. After we have done marking, we will return the notes to them so they can review the content when they have time. This way, they can just read through the key points without having to watch the whole video again, which is normally 2 hours or longer. And they will have no time to re-watch it. On the other hand, it might only take them 20 minutes to read their own notes, because they only read the summary, which is short and concise. This will help them with their Dharma practices. Some said that they could never remember our videos even after watching them 10 or 20 times. It is because there is a lot of content in one episode. It is really difficult to remember the content we taught and in which video. One can only remember some after watching it repeatedly. So, we ask disciples to make notes, which will solve this problem. She said, "The more notes I make, the more I understand the importance of the precepts. So, I recite the Bodhisattva precepts every day, and I carefully ponder these Bodhisattva precepts. Over the last few days, I recalled that I violated the 36th of the Bodhisattva precepts 9 years ago, not helping to remove other people's sufferings." That is, she saw someone else suffering, but did not help them remove their suffering. "And now I wish to make amends, Master. Let me tell you a condensed version of the story. The title is, Dreaming of an Unknown Friend from the Spiritual Realm Asking for Help. Could I help them get rid of the pain?" The detailed version is my disciple is very clear in writing. A long time ago, my aunt was a bhikshuni at the Po Lin Monastery in Lantor Island. She looked fierce and hardly spoke or smiled. She was responsible for cleaning the Guanyin Hall, where there was a golden and divine statue of Bodhisattva Guanyin or Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. When I was 12, my mother took me to visit my aunt at the Po Lin Monastery. When my mother went to the washroom, my aunt ordered me to kowtow loudly 3 times in front of the statue of Bodhisattva Guanyin. Without demur, I kowtowed 3 times inaudibly. So my aunt demonstrated it herself, and said to me sternly, "You must bump your head and make a sound loud enough to show your sincerity." So, I kowtowed loudly many more times. Then my aunt taught me how to read the sutras, which I could not understand by reading or listening to them. At the age of 12, I did not recognize many Chinese characters yet, and those were not Cantonese either. I asked my aunt if she could understand the sutras. I wondered if they could actually understand them through continuous chanting. Unexpectedly, her aunt told her that she did not understand the sutras either, but just kept on chanting them. Back then, my disciple thought to herself, Dharma practitioners are indeed profound and unfathomable. But now, after listening to Guru's teachings, she understood why these Dharma practitioners need to spend 3 great Asamkhya Kalpa to succeed in their Dharma practices. They recite the Diamond Sutra without understanding its intrinsic meaning. So how could they possibly arouse one thought of pure belief to accumulate immeasurable virtuous merits? If they read a sutra, but did not understand its intrinsic meaning at all, how could their intrinsic awareness be possibly aroused? That is why they have to take their time to read the sutra slowly until they can finally understand it in one lifetime for their intrinsic awareness to be aroused. As such, it requires 3 great Asamkhya Kalpas. This is also a way of accumulating virtuous merits. But taking 3 great Asamkhya Kalpas to accumulate virtuous merits is a big deal. If you accidentally fall into hell during one of your lifetimes, you will have a hard time coming out. How could you possibly recite sutras in hell? You will be too painful to remember any sutras. How could you still possibly recite sutras in there? There is no hope for you to come out again. It is truly miserable. Later, my aunt passed away. One day, I dreamed of my aunt smiling at me kindly. She had never smiled at me. She hardly spoke or smiled. But she was smiling at me kindly. She was wearing a nun's casual dress. So, I went to Po Lin Monastery to visit her, that is, to worship her. Later, I saw in a small store a wooden sculpture with the words, Sarangama Mantra, engraved on it. My disciple thought to herself, if it was the sutra her aunt taught her to read back then. So, she looked it up on the internet and realized that this is one of Mahayana Buddhism's essential sutras. There are 2 schools of thought on the internet. One school of thought says that this sutra is fabricated, and its contents are totally fake and detrimental to people. Another school of thought claims this sutra to be extraordinary, surpassing any other sutras. It is the best of the best. These are the 2 different schools of thought. When my disciple browsed the internet, she came across the school of thought in favor of this sutra, which claims it to be an essential sutra, and the first lost sutra. It was lost and then found, which is why some people said it was fabricated. The sutra is obviously unfounded, yet it was claimed to be a Buddhist sutra lost in the past and is only now recovered. That is why this sutra is often criticized. But my disciple thought it was a genuine Buddhist sutra, as she did not know. She said, according to Sarangama Sutra, in this era, the evil teachers preaching the Dharma are like the sands of the Ganges. Evil teachers are as many as the sands of the Ganges. I agree with this sentence. So, I was even more curious and spent time transcribing the Sarangama mantra, phonetically from Sanskrit into Chinese characters. She recited the Sarangama mantra in Chinese phonetic transcription and practiced it daily. There is a total of 427 sentences and 2,620 words. 2 incidents happened during the period she practiced the Sarangama mantra. The first incident, at that time, my disciple had to juggle looking after 4 children and going to work. She had no time reading the content of the newspapers, but only the headlines. One day, she saw a news report in the newspaper that a lady working in a nightclub in Shenzhen was murdered. Her mother seemed to be accusing something with grief. She did not go through the article in detail, because she only read the headlines. That night, she dreamed of that lady who showed the whole process of her being humiliated to death and being killed. It was like watching a video, like a movie. My disciple could completely feel her pain, resentment, and helplessness. Pay attention to these few words: pain, resentment, and helplessness. It is very miserable. This is a huge magnetic field. And she had connected with this magnetic field, so she could see this lady. My disciple went to a place full of thick fog, gray and dark in her dream. After taking a turn, she saw a big stone. She said to this lady, "Stop thinking about the past. Stop thinking about the desolate scene of being humiliated to death. Let it go, and do not think about it anymore. Just rest by the big stone and practice the holy Dharma." What should she practice? I taught her to recite the Heart Sutra, and told her that she must wait until Bodhisattva Guanyin arrived and go with her. Because I only remembered the Guanyin hall my aunt guarded and the Guanyin statue she worshipped. So, I told that lady to wait for Guanyin to rescue her. Although my disciple did not know and understand the Heart Sutra well according to her, she could not recite the whole Heart Sutra fluently while being wide awake, but had no idea why she could recite it naturally in the dream. In the meantime, there was no need to speak in the dream. The communication was through the mind without making a sound through the vocal cords. Everything could be understood through the mind. My disciple said that after she woke up, she looked through the newspaper again, only to find that the report's content was exactly the same as what the lady showed her, and what she saw was even clearer and more detailed than the news report. How come this could happen? At about the same time, a second incident occurred. A serious industrial accident occurred in Hong Kong at that time. At the International Commerce Center ICC, 6 cleaners passed away after falling from the 30th floor to the bottom of the 10th floor in a shaft where a lift had not yet been installed. I just listened to the news report at the time. I did not read the newspaper, not even the headline. I only heard of this incident. That night, I was lying in bed with my eyes closed, about to sleep. Suddenly, I traveled to the time and space at that time, and I was on top of their heads, witnessing that exact moment of the accident happening. I completely felt their panic, helplessness, and horror at the scene. Why could she feel the pain of the victims in both situations? Because that was a magnetic field. You are not looking at an ordinary picture. You are not watching a movie in the theater or watching TV at home, where you only see the picture, not being connected to the magnetic field. But in her case, she was connected directly to the magnetic field. So, she was not only seeing pictures, but also directly feeling the emotions. Therefore, she could sense that kind of panic, helplessness, and horror. Remember these 3 feelings. This magnetic field is called the magnetic field of panic, helplessness, and horror. Keep this in mind, and I will explain it later. My heart was in my mouth at that time. I was terrified, so I tried very hard to open my eyes. It was too horrible to continue watching. In those days, I had no one to ask and no one to answer me. Neither had I taken refuge from any guru. I wondered if these two situations happened because I recited the Surangama mantra. In order to avoid seeing these scenes again, I deleted the entire Surangama mantra that was transcribed phonetically from Sanskrit into Chinese. However, I could not get rid of the Surangama heart mantra because it was shorter and had deeply rooted in my mind. I could not get rid of it in my mind. Looking back, was I a little stupid and ignorant? I haven't dreamed of them and seen these things in the last 9 years ever since I stopped reciting the Surangama mantra. Because she was no longer connected to these magnetic fields, she no longer dreamed of them. So, she did not go and find a way to remove their suffering. Because she had not taken refuge yet at that time, so she did not know what to do. Also, she was not sure if they were still in the spiritual realm of horror, panic, resentment, sorrow, and helplessness. She had no idea. 9 years later, she finally had the chance to take refuge from a guru, receive and observe the Bodhisattva precepts, and practice the holy Dharma under the 360-degree protection of lineage gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It was the preciousness of 10 endowments. So, I would like to request advice from Buddha Father and Buddha Mother. Can I make amends by removing their suffering? Would it be too late after 9 years have passed? Yours respectfully, Disciple Jingyi. I replied to her the same day, Jingyi, you should create a group name for them, something related to Buddhist holy Dharma. You should rename all these deceased sentient beings with a group name related to Buddhism. For example, sentient beings free from sufferings. How nice to have a group name. After each session of Dharma practice, you can dedicate merits to them and request Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to assist them. I will explain other details when it comes to that part during the Dharma event. It finally came true. Initially, I wanted to explain it at the Upavasata, which is also a Dharma event. But I chose to explain it at a public Dharma event at the end. I suppose this is called causes and conditions. Let us take a look now. Why did this disciple have these dreams while reciting the Surangama Sutra, but not when reciting the Heart Sutra? The reason was as told earlier on. Because it is a fabricated sutra. It is apocryphal. For example, the Dharma practice from the previous passage lacks the requirement of the precepts and some essential elements. Without good nature of the mind, one will be connected with the realm of hungry ghosts if one follows that Dharma practice method. Or if you have good nature of the mind, but your karmic creditors are too powerful within your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, they will still drag you into the realm of hungry ghosts. This sutra appeared during the Tang dynasty, and it has been around for more than 1,000 years. There have been a lot of people who fell into the realm of hungry ghosts because of practicing this Dharma method and being deceived by the appearances of Buddhas or Buddha's pure land as emanated by their karmic creditors. They are very miserable. Many people were abused by their karmic creditors after falling into the realm of hungry ghosts. So, they all fell into a magnetic field full of fear, horror, helplessness, grievances, and resentment. Because the grievances are too heavy, they have accumulated into a huge negative energy magnetic field. Therefore, when this disciple practiced the Dharma following the methods of the Surangama Sutra, she would be connected to this negative magnetic field. As a result, she would be drawn into that state right away, and see those sentient beings who exist in that state. This is the case of my disciple. In other words, suppose this disciple continued to practice this Dharma method and insisted on doing so persistently, thinking that it was okay since she was to save people. and she could also know how many people had died. But why could she not see people who die naturally? She only saw people who died in a violent and painful way. It is because the magnetic field of the Surangama Sutra is especially connected to the most painful ghosts, or sentient beings in the realm of hungry ghosts. So, she would only be connected to that place. If she did not stop practicing it, she would definitely enter into the realm of hungry ghosts after death in the future. Furthermore, what kind of ghost realm would she enter into? The ghost realm is also divided into ones that are not too scary, moderately horrible, and some extremely terrifying. Which one would she enter into? She would enter into the ones with tremendously heavy negative energy and an excruciatingly painful state. It would not be an ordinary ghost realm, but the most painful one. When this sutra was introduced to Tibet back then, it caused many significant disputes. It also caused a lot of controversy in China. However, some very famous great monks even added this sutra to the Pure Land school of Buddhism and promoted it vigorously in order to maintain their sect. This is because they had no realizations in their Dharma practices and never entered into those scenes. My disciple could enter into the scenes, but they could not. It was also due to the lack of a complete understanding of the Buddhist holy Dharma. Their interpretation of the Buddhist holy Dharma is very superficial. Take the passage I have just explained. I can clearly see that the sentence, without the aid of other expedient means, is questionable. It means that there is no need to observe the precepts, or do anything else besides practicing the Dharma method of abiding in notions. Practicing the Dharma method of abiding in notions in the three realms without observing the precepts is a big deal. This is something that a Dharma practitioner with realizations will know. How come they did not know? I have no idea why they were not aware of this. It means they had no realizations. Since they lacked in both theory and realizations, it ended up like this. This explains the danger of practicing the Dharma by following a fabricated sutra. You have to remember, when I believe in the wrong person, or a fabricated sutra, will it end up as simple as not doing well in the Dharma practice, or not being saved after death? No, it is more than that. If many people died in vain because of this fabricated sutra, there would be a lot of resentment, which would draw you straight into it. So, in the future, if you see any friend practicing the Surangama Sutra, or reciting the Surangama mantra, advise them to stop practicing it. It is better to recite the Diamond Sutra, or the Heart Sutra, which will be more beneficial to you all. You should advise them this way so that they will not fall into or be dragged into this kind of state. That is it for today's lecture.